In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If there were not, would I have told you that I am going to prepare a place for you? These are beautiful words of welcome uttered by the risen Lord in his Last Supper discourse. And I think in them he makes a point that resonates with our heart. Because I think when we hear them, we say, oh good, I'm included. And the church frequently uses this reading at funerals because we want to make clear that the person in our midst is drawn and has a place, a personal place in God's eternity. I think we can build on that point to recognize a truth of our interior life. And that is this, that Jesus is making us ready for heaven as ourselves. And we are sanctified not by becoming someone else, not by conformity to some model of being Christian or being a priest or being a husband or being a wife or being a single person, not some template. But we are sanctified in the full complexity of ourselves. I think there are a number of things to say about that. The first is that Jesus' sanctifying power is reaching out to touch our temperament. Some of us are loud and some of us are quiet. Some of us are drawn to people, some of us keep to ourselves. Some of us are practical, some of us are dreamers. And yet, each one of us receives that temperament as part of the mystery of our individuality, and that part of us will be drawn into the complex beauty of the eternal worship which is being given to God. And in the meantime, on the way, that truth of our temperament becomes part of the rich life of the church. You know, I live in a Brother Hyacinth and I live in a community, and we're as Dominicans part of a miniature world. Some of us are administrators, some of us are theologians, some of us become familiar with the plumbing in the house, some of us go become missionaries, some of us are singers, and the list goes on. And you recognize in this is that the temperaments, the individuality of people is what works to make the whole a real thing. That's kind of the easy wedge into the door. But it gets more complicated when I think of my own personal history and the mistakes I have made and all the things I wish I had not done and had not said, and the things I wish I had done or had said. And I think to myself, does any of that disqualify me? Do I not belong because of that story? And the answer of the Lord is, that story can be the very grist for your coming to long for God and to delight in His presence. And I think of all the things that are in conflict inside me. You know, the challenges of following the gospel and also being Walter. And does that disqualify me? And again, the answer comes back, No. The very struggle you have in being yourself is the way in which you draw upon His grace, His compassion, and trust in His victory. And it's the very way you have compassion on other people. So you see, just in these little descriptions, the transformation that the resurrected life brings about in us. Because so often in life we are presented with icons of ideal humanity. Bodily, certain bodily type, body type, mind type, career type, so forth and so on. And we can judge ourselves in comparison to that and damage ourselves in the process. But in the resurrected life, we are looking at the fact that the risen Lord, and with the gift of the Holy Spirit, is working with every nuance of every person to create out of all of us a thing of beauty both in this world and in the next. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. You see, and that is a path to freedom. Because if I think that I have to be a certain way and do a certain thing and have a certain temperament or way of engaging life, I'm going to judge myself in comparison to you. But if I recognize God has made an ample embrace of all of my complexity, then I'm free to delight in the gifts you have that I don't. And that's the freedom that we are meant to have in the church. And speaking of the church, this saying of Jesus is also a word about prayer. We all don't pray in the same way. And the differences in our ways of prayer attach to the differences in our temperament and in our history. We're here in St. Vincent Ferrer's Church, and many of you know it well. There are all kinds of shrines and altars here, so that somebody could come in here and be drawn to a particular place by the saint or the mystery or the color or the whatever is there. And the same is true of the whole inner life of prayer. Types of prayer, texts of prayer, all of those differ among us. And they always have. But God hears them all. And from their diversity comes a complete song that only He hears and treasures. So, in my house there are many dwelling places. And that means that already in this uncertain world, I have a security that cannot be taken away from me, because my place is ready. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.